have this one I could use. I could bend this guy back. It's kind of weird. So if I'm not certain, I mean, I always can cut it to spur and look at it, you know? I could use this one too. This guy's pretty weak. This guy's not going to want to bend back that way. This guy's a killer interior position for next year.
So the interior position would be laid up on the second wire? Or
no.
lay that down?
This position is my replacement for next year.
So where will you
But where
prune
would you
next
lay
year?
Well, ideally I get one shoot coming out of here and one out of here.
Yeah.
I can cut this whole
You
arm
cut
off
that
and lay
whole
those
thing.
guys down.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you do that this year and use this one here?
I'm thinking about it.
Oh.
That's a good call. So I'm gonna leave two options. This one doesn't want to bend down. I could use this one for this side, but I have a lot of great options over here. And so sometimes I go to a plan and be like, oh, I'm gonna spur it, but then I see stuff like that. And this one. I could extend that one out too. So I mean, it's kind of a give or take. Do I want to cane this one this year and make a couple big cuts? I could cut that there. This one did great last year. Let's see if this one wants to bend. And this one has a really weak socket there. See that break right there? Don't want that one, no. That made my decision for me. I do like this idea you have here.
That's
Nice
such
and
an
strong.
awful noise.
Always try it first before you.
Yeah, I like to.
So
I
you don't
mean,
break
after
it.
a while you get used to it. I'm kind of
Yeah.
doing it for you guys to be like, a lot of times these canes break, you know?
Yeah.
This is going to be a big cut here. I want to avoid that big cut, especially so close to the head. I'm going to leave it out here.
Just to stay away from the main trunk.
Yeah.
That part looks like it's not productive and what do you call those?
Say that again?
The reason you cut that was just to minimize more.
I'm trying to minimize the amount of wood on this plant and lay down as much new wood as possible. New wood, more fresh, less disease. And this vineyard is proven to be more fruitful. So I'm not going to ask too much out of it. I'll take it back one bud here.
Would you ever use a second wire
Certainly.
when you're laying down?
Yeah,
Okay.
Paul Steger was here earlier from PM Steger. He has a vineyard that has a wire up here where he lays the vineyard or the canes over it and bows it back down. Works great.
Okay. so
What's the
does
advantage
he-
again of having the arch?
It's to mitigate apical dominance. So, like we were saying earlier, basically the vines want to shoot all their xylem and phloem down this highway right here, and then it stops here. So it shoots it all out this last bud.
Okay.
So oftentimes what you have is a bunch of vigor around the head, a bunch of vigor on the end, and blind spots in the middle
Okay.
with little dinky canes.
But by bending it,
By bending it, you have more sunlight up here, and less photosynthesis down here by theory,
okay.
and you get more
So you
sunlight
think
on
you
these
get more
canes.
uniform growth out of it.
You're right, and they're higher up too, so these are weaker. The fruit, out of theory, would be in the same area.
And when you have two canes like these back here, how are you deciding how far apart?
The gaps between them.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, ideally on these vines, since they're not super vigorous, I don't like to leave 10 to 12 bud canes. I usually judge that by the thickness of them and how they did the previous year. So if I'm looking at canes like this, I cut that cane off right there. It did great. All these canes coming out of it are super thick. I know that this year I can give it some more space, but perhaps the year before it didn't. So I really look at what it did the previous year and kind of extrapolate what I can imagine it will do the following year. Yeah, so this one.
Problem with I had too many shoots and leaves and growth where the two vines came together.
Right.
It made a mess.
That's a big deal. That's a big issue because of apical dominance. You have these super big, thick canes out there that cross.
Yeah.
Then you have clusters on top of each other, and they want to get all botrized. And So it's good to try to avoid that.
I eliminated to some extent that problem by going, instead of going 3 feet each way, I went 6 feet. And I just continued 6 feet.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I never
one
had
way,
that,
one way.
that terminal cluster.
Uh-huh.
Two ends of 2 canes coming together. They all just went.
All the canes went the same way. Got it.
Yeah, you do unilateral cane.
That's the quadrilateral system.
Right.
Works better.
Now you're leaving a lot of canes for next year on this plant.
I'm leaving a lot.
You're not done,
Oh,
I bet.
Yeah, definitely not done.
okay.
You know, here's an example of where I could do a kicker cane. Let's just give you an example of that. I'm gonna cut it off. So we don't have to walk down the way. I'll give you an example of that. I'm gonna leave that one. This is not the best example, but usually I like to leave it on a position that's pretty high up that I want to cut off the next year. But there's a good example of a trilateral cane pruning that we call kicker cane. And some guys use this to devigorate vineyards. If you have a lot of vigor, you could lay this guy up here, wait for the shoots to be out like this, and then cut it off. It's a great way to devigorate a vineyard. You could use cover crop, you could use kicker canes, or if you want to maximize crop, you leave it on, if you can handle it. You know, if you have enough nutrients in your vineyard and your vines are strong enough to handle that much fruit.
But you're going to have a congestion in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
You do
You
that,
have to
right?
see-
That's the
see-
mildew problem.
Exactly. So by doing this, you're asking a lot of the plant. You might not get as much next year. You might have a bunch of more shoots that are thinner. You'll lessen your options for next year. You're going to increase your disease pressure unless you come out early, shoot thin early, leaf pull early, and really, if you want more fruit, it's going to be more money to manage it too. So it's a give and take.
Now you left a lot of buds on that kicker. You're gonna have a dozen or 14.
I'm actually not going to leave that at all. That was just an example.
Okay,
This whole entire upper block, I don't kicker cane.
What
okay.
is the tonnage that you get out of your per acre of this particular thing?
In general, 1.5 to 2.5
Tons?
tons per acre. Last year it was decimated by deer. I don't even want to tell you how much it was.
We won't
It's
talk about
embarrassing.
it. It's
Less?
But last year deer absolutely decimated this vineyard.
And netting won't help with